Hana architecture. Today we are going to see Hana architecture. See this. So what is this client application? This client application may be anything. Hana database, on the top of Hana database, you can install any application. So whether it may be SAP application or else non-SAP application. It is not mandatory. It is a Hana data SAP's database. So only you need to install SAP product. No, you can install any third-party application and any other applications on top of Hana. Hana is just a database. For any application, you can use that, whether it is a Hana SAP application as well as non-SAP application. If you are having any Microsoft related application which you want to install on Hana database, yes, you can install on Hana database. It is working like just like other databases, like how your Oracle, MS SQL, Sybase, all how they are working for all other applications. The same way you can use this Hana database for any other application. So this client application means any SAP any applications which are related to ABAP or any other thing. And this client application, this is MDX and SQL protocol. Means whether you are, for example, if it is a ECC system, so it follows SQL protocol directly, it will connect. So if it is a web-based, it is Java kind of thing, solution manager kind of things, and SAP PO kind of things, web-based applications, then you need to connect with the HTTP. We'll discuss this client applications, this HANA Studio and Cockpit, everything we'll discuss. So right now I'm going to discuss about a few things here. Few services are there. The important services which we get along with the SAP HANA installation is name server, preprocessor, compile server, index server, web dispatcher, and access engine. These are all the common services which you get along with your HANA installation. Means if you install HANA database, the mandatory services are these: name server, preprocessor, compile server, index server, web dispatcher, access engine. Along with this, you will be having some daemon service. You know what is daemon, and SAP start SRV. We used to get all these services. From these services, name server, first of all, the important service is daemon server. You know daemon server, right? In the time of Unix, Linux operating systems, you used to have daemon. It works in a background. It is used for starting and stopping of your HANA database. Whatever the application you want to start, in a backend, some daemon program should run. That only initiate all these things. After that, start SAP SRV. You know what is do. It will read the configuration files. It will read some profiles, and it will try to start your SAP application. It is used to read the logs, all the traces, all the configurations, memory configuration, relation information, everything. We use this. I am not going to discuss about that daemon service and SAP start service. Today we are focusing on only these things: name server, preprocessor, compile server, and web dispatcher, access engine. There are so many services in HANA, and whenever you need whatever the service, you can activate, you can deactivate that services. For example, if you want some predictive analysis, there is some service, you have to activate that to do the predictive analysis. There is for example, what is name server exactly? Name server contains topology information. What is the meaning of topology? Topology means metadata. So what all the services which are running on this HANA database, all the information is stored with your name server. The first important service is what? Daemon service. Without starting the daemon service, you cannot start all these services. First the daemon service will start, it will kick name server. After that only these all services will start. So here the important services are daemon service, name server, and index server. Why I am saying all these important, I'll tell you. So daemon service, without daemon, can you start your HANA database? No. So when you start your HANA database, daemon service will start. After that, it will kick name server. After name server, it will start all these services. So daemon server is very important to start and stop of your HANA database. Fine. This name server contains a topology information. Topology information means what? The metadata, the information of your HANA database, what all the services are running, all the services and the port numbers, everything, the information is kept at a name server. And when especially this HANA supports multi-host installation, we discussed, means you can install, for example, you are having node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4, four servers. You can install this HANA database on these four servers, so that all your data is shared between these four hardware resources. And this especially this type of installation, we call it as scale out installation. In the time of scale out installation, this name server has a special role. So this name server knows which data resides on which chunk. For example, if you are having some huge table which is having more than 2 billion records, then what you do, we do that partition of the tables. Some part of table will be stored on node 1, some part of table will be stored on node 2, node 3, node 4. And when you call that data, who knows which data resides on which chunk? Name server. So without name server, you cannot survive. If the name server is stopped, your database is stopped. You have to, if you want to stop the name server, you have to restart your database. Remember this. Without name server, you cannot survive. Name server is having topology information. So what all the services are running and all the port numbers, everything information the name server contains. Along with that, in scale out multi-host installations, what all the data resides in which chunk, everything, each and every information is with name server. Not information will be there, actually pointer information, where, for example, in that table, where is that table resides, that information is there in name server. And what we have in that table, that information is not there. Just it will point out the location where exactly that data has. That's it about name server. So name server is having some data, remember this. After that name server, very important server, first important server, daemon server, second is name server, and third very most important service is index server. Index server, remember, entire your HANA database is storing in your index server, all your tables, data, all your business data, repository, everything. Almost all 97%, 95 to 97 percentage of your HANA database content is residing in your index server. Is residing in where? Index server. That is the reason, if you see, these clients are connecting to where? Index server. To fetch the data, they are connecting to whether it is a MDX, multi-dimensional, what is that? Extreme something is there, and SQL protocol or HTTP, HTTPS, whatever it may be. They are connecting to where? Finally they are fetching the data from where? Index server. Why? This index server is holding entire data of your HANA database. Wait. Yeah. Please mute. 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 Okay. So index server contains entire data. So if you stop this index server is stopped, what happens? Entire your database is down. If your name server is down, you don't know where which data presents where, you don't know. If the daemon is down, your HANA database won't start. So important services are here: daemon server, name server, and index server. So if you want, you can stop this preprocessor, compile server, web dispatcher, and access engine. So if you stop this preprocessor, it will affect somewhat, but it won't affect the entire database. But if you stop the name server, you have to restart your database. If you stop index server, you have to restart your database. If you stop your daemon service, you have to restart your database. Then what is this preprocessor? This preprocessor, compile server, these are all on-demand services. They don't hold any data. Name server holds data, right? What data? Metadata information will be there. All the services information will be there. Which data resides where, all the pointers, metadata information is there in name server. And daemon server also don't hold any data. It is after starting your database, it has no work. At the time of stopping, it will comes into picture. Starting and stopping daemon, it don't hold any data. But what all the services are holding the data here? Name server will hold the data, and entire database is holding by index server. So these two, name server and index server, contains data in that. But when it comes to this preprocessor, compile server, all these are just like your dispatcher. Whenever the request comes, it will forward your request to appropriate work process. The same way, this preprocessor, it will process unstructured data. For example, if I'm giving some Excel sheet, if I'm throwing some Excel sheet to this HANA database, this index server won't understand that. So what this index server will do, index server will call this preprocessor. So this preprocessor will comes into picture, and it will process that unstructured data into index server understandable format, and it will give the data to index server. Then index server will understand that query, and it will process the request, and it will throw the result. Or else you can say flat files. You don't have any structure for that. For Excel sheets and flat files, the raw data is coming, right? Whenever the raw data comes into index server will call preprocessor will process that data, and it will make that data into SQL understand structured format, and it will throw to index server. Then index server will process that request, and it will throw the result. This is what your preprocessor. And so preprocessor is holding any data? No, and it is coming on demand service. Whenever index server calls, it will come and it will do the work, and it will throw the result to index server. That's it. It won't hold any data. Whereas name server and index server hold the data. Preprocessor won't hold any data. It is an on demand service, just like your dispatcher. Next thing is compile server. Compile server is for compiling. So whenever you get any SQL statement, SQL queries, all the databases are what? Databases will have tables. In that tables will be having the data. Any database, if you take any database, every database is having some tables. It is universal truth. Then all the database will understand which language? Only SQL language. So whenever you throw some SQL statements, whenever you shoot some SQL statements to index server will call this compile server. This compile server will come, it will have some stored procedures, it will have some libraries, compilers in that. It will compile that SQL statement, and it will throw to index server. So that index server will understand that query, and it will throw you the result. And also, if you throw some large SQL statement, complex SQL statement, sometimes what we'll do, these finance people and this BW people, they used to write some large SQL statement. They used to try to get entire data at a shot. Whenever whatever you say to them, how many times you will understand, you request them, they do the same thing. They'll just give a try. If we write this code, we'll see whether it is giving the entire information once or not. They'll do these kind of things. So they won't result to the basis consultant anymore. So whatever you say to them, they'll write some complex SQL statements, they'll throw on the database. So this, when the complex SQL statement comes, what this indexer won't understand that. It will call compile server. This compile server will break that large SQL statement into small chunks, and it will execute that, and it will process that request, and it will throw to index server, so that index server can understand. It is very much intelligent, a compile server, which is having some storage procedure. So whether, if even though index server cannot understand that, when it will come into picture, index server will call this compile server will come and process that large SQL statements. It will break that into small chunks, and it will execute that SQL statement, and it will give the result to index server. So then index server, whatever the information you required through that SQL statement, will pass the information to client applications. This is what your compile server. Is compile server holding any data? No. It is an on-demand service, just like your preprocessor and compile server. If preprocessor is stopped, what happens? If any unstructured data comes, it won't process. Okay, but entire database won't affect. It will affect somewhat. If compile server comes, it will affect somewhat. But if your name server stops, index server stops, daemon stops, you have to restart your entire database. Remember that. And what is web dispatcher? You know dispatcher. What dispatcher will do? It will do the traffic. It will do the load balancing kind of thing. Traffics. The same way as a basis consultant, we will be having web dispatcher in Java systems. When it comes to web systems, we are having dispatcher. It will dispatch the work to appropriate work process. Whatever the work process is free, it will throw that request to that work process. Here also, this web dispatcher will maintain this HTTP traffic. Whatever the uh, uh, process is free, for that process it will give that a HTTP or HTTP request. So whenever a request comes from Java based web based applications, first it won't directly go to index server. For ABAP based systems, it is directly going talking with index server. But for Java based systems, HTTPS request, this index server won't understand that HTTPS protocol. It will only understand SQL protocol. So the request will go to web dispatcher. Web dispatcher will give that request to access engine. Access engine is there, extended service engine. So for Java based applications, we use this. What this access engine will do, access engine will convert this HTTP request into SQL index server understandable SQL format. Then index server will process that request and it will give the result to access engine. Access engine will again the give request to web dispatcher. From web dispatcher, the result will go to application, client application. So this web dispatcher, access engine, compile server, preprocessor are on-demand services. If you want to stop them, you can stop. You can start and stop independently. But if you stop, then if there is some condition comes, if you want to stop name server, if your name server is fully utilized, all the memory is occupied, then what happens? It will definitely hang. At that time, you have to restart your database to resolve the issue. For index server also, if your index server is down, can you able to access any business data? Where your business data is residing? Entire your repository, index, business data, all your data is residing in index server. Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Name server is having
Yes, sir.
topology information. Name server is having topology information. What all the services we are having, all the port numbers, everything. All these services information is having. Who is having all this information? Name server. And in multi-host installation, name server plays a vital role. And this name server will have all the data information, which data resides where. In multi-host installations, this name server works as a master name server. Other name servers, we used to call it as, if you are having multiple hosts, this name server will be master name server. You will be having some slave, some other name server. All hosts will have different name servers. That name servers will be on hold. So they won't work. Only this name server will work as a master name server. If this name server goes down, that another standby name server will comes into picture and it will be master again. You will understand all those things later. Now it is too early to explain you that multi-host installation. So as of now, go with name server. And index server contains almost all 95% of your entire HANA database information is stored in your index server. And the preprocessor is for unstructured data. Whenever the unstructured data comes into index server, like Excel sheets and what is that, flat files, then this preprocessor will comes into picture. It will process the unstructured data into index server understanding format. Then index server will process that request and it will throw the result to the client application. The compile server is for compiling. It will have some stored procedures, SQL plan cache it will have. So whenever the largest SQL statements will come, index server will call that compile server. This compile server will break that largest SQL statement into small chunks and it will process that request. And finally, it will give that SQL statement to index server. Then SQL index server will process that request. If the web-based applications are connected to your HANA database, whatever the request comes from that web-based application, it won't to talk with index server directly. The first request comes to web dispatcher. Web dispatcher will forward that request to access engine. Access engine will convert that HTTPS web ID kind of request to SQL understanding format to index server. Then index server will process that and it will give the result to access engine. Access engine in return, it will give the request to the web dispatcher, result from web dispatcher to client application. This is how these applications will connect to your HANA database. This MDX means your BW system, master data extended service, something is there. SQL means your ABAP based system, your ECC, your SRM, CRM, all the systems. Your HTTPS means your EP, enterprise portal, and your solution manager, SAP PO, all these contain some Java engine in that, right? From there, if you are getting any web IDE based request, it will happen. If it is a ABAP based systems, SQL based systems applications, then they will directly talk with index server. And is it clear?
Yeah.
Yes.
Any doubts here?
Yes.
It is very complex architecture actually. HANA database, we will be having so many engines in that, in HANA database, so many, well, nearly 40 services we are having, but I'm discussing only the services which comes along with the installation. This will be activated automatically when you do the installation. There will be so many services on demand. You can activate, you can deactivate, simple, by using true or false. Some parameters will be there, you have to change that parameter from false to true, that service will be activated. And there is one more important service is there which will be there along with the installation, that is statistic server. Up to HANA 1.0 SPS 9 revision 93 or 95, we used to have statistic server. You'll see I have written on that. Yeah, HANA 1.0 SPS 9 revision 93. Up to here, we used to have statistic server. Along with this compile server, preprocessor, we used to have statistic server. Actually, what it will do when you use the statistics engine means, when you are doing some statistic kind of things, if you want to compare some, you are having some historical data, your this HANA database is supporting for OLTP and as well as OLAP. If you are having any statistic kind of things, if you want to produce any pie charts, graph charts, any you want to do comparison, then the statistics server comes into picture. Actually, why it is not there now means, it is there. The statistics server is embedded into your index server now. It won't show you the statistics server, but it is embedded into index server from HANA 1.0 SPS 9 revision 93. So why? What is the reason they embedded into this index server? So SAP allotted 5 GB of memory to the statistics server, but no customer have ever seen that the statistics server is using 5 GB of memory. Whenever, whatever the big customers, whenever they see it is using only 200 MB, 300 MB, up to 500 MB only. So when you install your HANA database, it is taking 5 GB of your memory. Memory is very important here. So that is the reason they obsolete that individual independent service from there, and they embedded. You need statistic kind of things on HANA database. So without statistic engine, how can you do that? So they embedded that service into index server to optimize the memory, so that now index server can utilize more memory if you embedded a statistic server into that. So unnecessarily that 5 GB of memory is wasting there. At any point of given point of time, it is using only, most of the times it is using only up to 500 MB. Why 5 GB there? So it is embedded into index server. The statistics service is there. It is embedded into index server. Prior to HANA 1.0 SPS 09, you used to see statistic engine there, statistic server there. But now it is there, but it is embedded into index server. It won't show you like a name server, preprocessor, compile server. I'll show you. Wait. So if you go with the landscape, you can see all the services. So all the services are green running. See, compile server, daemon server, name server, preprocessor, SAP start SRV, web dispatcher. Anything missed?
Yeah, access engine.
Access engine.
Static.
Statistics is missing. Boss, there is no index server.
Index
Index
server.
server, yeah.
Heart
It
is missing, boss. Heart is missing. There is no index server. Then where it is storing the data?
Index server will be in tenant DB.
In tenant database.
Mm-hmm.
Index server will be in tenant DB.
Oh, excellent, boss. Great. See, now you can see all the services. Index server. The first service which will start is daemon service, which is responsible for starting of your HANA database. Then it will start name server, After daemon service, name server, then index server, all other rest of the services. So index server, daemon server, name server, index server is there, preprocessor, web dispatcher, access engine, and compile server. We finished everything, right? And SAP start SRV also there. In it is not showing there. SAP start SRV service. What is SAP start SRV service, guys? Anyone? We discussed this SAP start service. When we
It will-
discussed, anyone
It will start
remember?
the. It will start the daemon. It will start the daemon.
Starts the USR directory.
What it will do?
It starts the USR directory.
No, no.
SAP start SRV will
Start
start
the
the
SAP.
daemon.
Start
It
SAP.
is used for starting the SAP.
It will read the configuration files. Maybe we are having that installation class. Do we have that?
It will start the daemon, sir.
Where is that? Yeah, it will start all the services. So it will read the profiles, it will read configuration files, it will occupy the memory, it will configure your memory structure, everything is done by SAP start SRV service. That is the reason when you do the kernel upgradation, when you're starting your system, HANA, SAP system, not only HANA, SAP system, the first service which is starting is SAP start SRV service. And when you shut down the SAP system, finally you kill SAP start SRV service. It won't kill, it won't stop. Sometimes we manually kill. Whoever have done this starting and stopping of your SAP systems will know this SAP start SRV service well. Yes or no? Agalya, Srinithi, have you seen this SAP start SRV service?
Yes.
Yeah, you have to kill this SAP start
Yeah,
SRV.
yeah, we have seen.
And when you after kernel upgradation
yeah.
also, if your SAP system is not starting, first what you do, you will try to start this SAP start service and you try to copy that old SAP start service from old kernel to new kernel, and we try to uninstall, and again we try to start. So that is what your SAP start service. We discuss. It is part of which service? SAP start SRV. Anyone? No. SAP start SRV,
SAP host agent.
SAP host agent. Excellent. Your host agent is responsible for your SAP start SRV service. Host agent contains 3 functionalities. What are they, guys?
SAP OS or SAP start
SAP OS call, SAP start SRV, and SAP host exe executor. It is used for launching your tools, SAP tools like your SWPM, SUM. You forgot. Gone. Oh, bus. Where is that? Installation directories. It is not there. We discussed, right? Yeah. I think we'll get in this installation. Yeah. This one. SAP host agent, SAP start SRV service, starting and stopping, monitoring the runtime, reading logs, traces, and configuration files, such as reading network ports, everything. The user is SID ADM user responsible for this SAP start SRV. Don't forget, this is very important service, SAP start SRV. Without SAP start SRV, that daemon, your SAP system won't start. Is it clear?